Welcome. Today we're going to be discussing the technique alternating maces, its execution, some of the problems that can arise during its execution, and how to fix or compensate for those problems. So the first thing that we have to think about here is two things. One, what position we're in. This is a non-ready position and a ready position. This technique starts from a non-ready position. Next thing we have to consider is our environment. We do have an open environment in this technique, not a closed environment, because if it was a closed environment, I would have to step to other places other than directly behind me. So the first thing that's going to be happening here is this person is going to be doing a push. We can take the brunt of the push, or in this case what we want to do is start to alleviate where that push is going to be moving to, because our focus point is typically where we started, so we want to try and alleviate that as much as possible. The next thing we have to worry about is how we're going to block this. If we were to just push down on this, what would happen is, if you look at the clock in front of me, I have gone from 6 o'clock all the way past 12 o'clock, all the way to 9 o'clock in my point of view. And that gives me 45 minutes. Only these 15 minutes haven't been used. That's a long time to go before we actually make contact with this opponent. So what we do is we use Mr. Parker's in order to beat action, meet action. So what we want to do is we're going to pick the hand directly up from 6 to 12, cutting off that extra 15 minutes, and then we can use those 15 minutes in order to push down as needed. So now, with these pushes, both on a horizontal and a vertical, we have to worry about starting an orbit that's going to reorbit back to hit us. What do I mean by that? If I block him too hard this way, I'm going to start a horizontal orbit that's going to reorbit back to hit me, or if I push down too much, I'm going to start an orbit on a vertical that's going to reorbit back to hit me. So I have to worry about that. So what we do is we make sure we only move just enough to where the opponent's barely going to miss us, and we push down just enough to where we can get a line of sight to what we're going to be doing next. And that brings up the left hand. What's happening with this left hand? If I look at the left hand, if I were just bringing it up a little bit to do a check or a cover, my hands are still below his, and I don't want that because I have really no line of sight, and he can block me. So what I want to do is I'm going to lift this left hand up so I have a direct line of sight of what I want to hit next, making sure that it's pointing where it's going to go and not in some funky direction that's not going to, it's going to force me to realign it in order to get it to where I want it to go. So to do this really quick again, we go up, down, get this in line of sight, and then the next maneuver is the punch. This punch we have to worry about, since we're dealing with dimension of depth, we want to have proper alignment and backup mass. And the backup mass works by alignment. So what that means is, if you look at my foot, my knee, my elbow, my hand, they're all in the direct line going to this opponent. If I don't do that and my elbow starts to stick out, which we call chicken winging in American Kenpo, I cannot take the brace of the push anymore, and I'm losing my brace angle. So I want to make sure my elbow is in line with my knee, and my hand and my foot are all, and knee are all in line together. That's going to give me a big bracing angle so that I can take a brunt, because remember, we're stopping this guy's forward momentum, so we need that brace angle. So the next thing I'm going to worry about is what's going on with the back knuckle, the final maneuver. So getting up to this point. Now, the first thing I need to consider is how am I rotating in order to deliver this strike. I can do what's called on-rotate, under-rotate, on-rotate, and over-rotate. What does that mean? If I just stay here and I try and do this, there's no help with my body mechanics in order to deliver this. The next thing I can do is turn and deliver it, which then helps because I have this shoulder getting close to them as I deliver this back knuckle. Or the worst thing I can do is over-rotate, which means I'm now moving away from this opponent and I'm trying to deliver this. So we want to make sure we use on-rotation, which is rotating back to our neutral bow. The next thing that you need to worry about is, if you're watching my hand, is what's the best path in order to finish up this technique. There are two things that you can do here. You can do what's called reversing, which is what I've been doing up to now. So I take the direct path back that I took out, or I can do what's called return motion. I take a shorter distance back in order to get the cover at the same time. If I was to do the return motion, I would then have to pick the hand up in order to get to the cover. So the better of the two would be to use return motion rather than reverse motion. So let's do this over real quick again. Make sure we move the hands out of the way just enough. Make sure we push down just enough, not to start orbits that are going to be on the horizontal or vertical that are going to reorbit back to us. Make sure we lift the left hand up so that it has a point of a line of sight for what we're going to be hitting. We do deliver the strike. Make sure that we have a bracing angle here and not the chicken wing with this strike. And the next thing we want to do is make sure we rotate properly and not over or under rotate this strike. And then once we deliver the strike, we want to make sure we bring it back on a return motion, not a reverse motion, so that we can get back into a checking position. Okay, slightly faster. And then if you wish, you can cross out. Hope this video helps you. Thank you very much.